Well, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome. Welcome to the broadcast today. I am here with my lovely bride, my lovely spouse, Pastor Anna. Great to have you today.
Good to be here.
Yes, this is June the 9th. And so if you're watching out there on Facebook, YouTube, or our church app, we greet you today. This is our Thursday Facebook Live. And several times a month, we try to get together where I bring my lovely spouse and bride on. And so we can talk about some cultural relevant issues of the day. And so today we got some pretty hot topics. Obviously, a lot going on in our world today. And so we'll get to it in a minute. But let me just briefly give you a couple quick announcements, what's happening. Again, encourage you to share the broadcast wherever you may be watching. But quickly, let me just give you a couple things. First is that tonight we have our prayer meeting. Thursday nights is the place to be. So I want to encourage you to join us. 7 o'clock as we pray and call upon the name of the Lord. Coming up end of June is our biggest outreach of the year, which is our VBS Monumental, Celebrating God's Greatness. And so this is going to be actually June the 27th through July 1st from 9 a.m. to noon. We have about 120 kids or so who come in. If you're interested, you can go on our website and register your child. What's the ages?
4 years old and then going into sixth grade.
Okay.
All the way through.
4 years old going on to sixth grade. And then lastly is Kingdom Impact School and Ministry. We're taking applications now as we speak. This is our 9-month discipleship school that's in Mays Landing. And if you're interested in the school, you can reach out to us again, church office and so forth. But that's happening. And so I want to encourage you to get yourself plugged in. Great way to grow in your grace of God, grow in the knowledge of God. And so a lot of fun things happening. Doing a lot of evangelism in the summer. Coming up in June 18th on Saturday, Soul Winning Saturday with Love in Action. And so a lot of things good happening as we gear up for this next season down here at the shore in South Jersey. So any thoughts? I'm just going to fix the camera.
Okay. There we go.
Okay. Well, if you're watching out there, tell us where you're from. It's great to be with you. We're watching online. And let's just get into it real quick. Let's begin today with a conversation about what happened, I think, a week or so ago in Texas, right, within the latest school shooting, unfortunately. We're not trying to be negative Nelly here, but we're just trying to give you really these events that you can look at it several ways, and then there's propaganda and agendas that are associated with it. But obviously, once you walk us through the Texas school shooting and the implications of what you're thinking, what you're talking about.
I think I don't even know if I want to focus so much on that shooting. There's a lot of issues. We do know that the federal government doesn't want to investigate, although there should be many reasons to investigate. But what we do hear is the one resounding sound and mantra that guns are the cause of it all. And so for me, I would just like to focus more on the gun issue and then talking about it from the biblical worldview and just kind of going through the process of just practically speaking, would it make sense to get rid of guns? What would that do? Are guns really the culprit in this whole situation? So I would want to, again, I like facts, so I'll just start off with facts. In 2021, we had about 434 million firearms in civilian possession. 434 million.
Wow.
That's a big number.
That's a huge number.
Right?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of guns out there that are legal. This is all legal. I'm sure there's plenty more that are not legal and we don't know about it, and the government supposedly doesn't know about it either.
Well, let's just stop for a second. The reality is we're from North Jersey. We looked at guns. I looked at guns as something of a negative situation if a civilian had it. We moved down here to South Jersey. It's a different culture, different world. Pretty much a lot of people have guns, and now we've embraced that understanding of taking up the Second Amendment and bearing
but
arms.
it was just never, it wasn't really needed.
Yeah.
You never really thought about it, and now think about it a lot.
That's right.
So anytime somebody tries to take something away from you, you have to ask the question, why?
Come on.
Right? Mm-hmm. So So back to that number, 434 million firearms in civilian possession in that year, 2021. Now, hear me, I'm not minimizing this at all, but I'm just looking to put proportion to things, okay? So there were 34 school shootings. Horrible. There shouldn't be even one school shooting, right? Any child that dies, any adult that dies in a school, like schools should be a safe place, and there shouldn't be these, it just shouldn't happen, okay? But when you look at the 434 million firearms, okay, and you look at that huge number, and then you look at 34 school shootings, the proportion, I'm just trying to get at the proportion of things, right? It is incredible. The proportion is incredible. We do live in South Jersey now, and some people that have lived here for a long time, they've been around for quite a while. They've told me this story about when they went to high school in Ocean City, they were able to, like, the bus driver allowed them to bring rifles on the bus. They brought those rifles to the principal's office. The principal had a cabinet for guns. The students would put, whoever wanted, the rifle in there would put the rifle in the cabinet. The principal would lock up that cabinet till school was over. They would come back, get their rifles, go back on the school bus. The bus driver would drop them off at the appropriate spot. They were going to go hunting, and everybody was fine. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
So you figure kids in high school had shotguns of sorts that they were going to go hunting with, some kind of I don't know what they were. Nobody got shot. There weren't any incidences because they understood it worked, right?
Sure.
So we're gonna like unravel this a little bit, and so maybe the causes are some other causes. Some of the causes I would throw out there is just medication.
Right.
A lot of times, you look at the different people that have shot up schools. There were some underlying issues. There was some medication going on. We know that medication some side effects of medication, especially like, in like brain type of, feeling, medication that's supposed to make you feel better. Sometimes the side effects is it can cause like sudden violence. It can cause, so medication is definitely a part of it. I'm just saying, like, I never think one thing is like all in all, but you have to take big picture ideas. You can't just hone in on one thing like guns and expect that to be the answer to everything, right?
Sure.
But broken homes are also another huge fatherlessness. Fathers not in the homes. That's huge. Can I tell you, lockdowns have actually messed kids up. Right. And so you take kids that were already having some social issues, they were already struggling in schools, and then you take them out and now all they are is behind a screen, and like you separate that reality, you separate the actual personhood, like of who's there. And so that would definitely be another issue that could cause things like that to happen. I would say video games are also something that separates reality from real life to what is happening. That separation of reality and fiction. And the last one, and I think this is the biggest one, is that there's no understanding of right and wrong. Schools absolute truth has been taken out of schools. I know we've mentioned that before, but I can't stress how this impacts what is happening with the guns in schools.
Sure.
If they're saying, if we're arguing about whether it's okay to kill a child in the womb, now there's a conversation about even 28 days after birth, and that's all okay. And they've been taught that It's okay for you to have your truth. I'll have my truth, right? There is no standard. Life is really not looked upon as valuable. Okay. And we see this all around. We see it, that's kind of like the what they're being taught. So how can we not expect it to come out in ways that we're not going to like it, right? In ways that are actually going to be hurtful to people.
Well, I think we got, but from a biblical standpoint, we got the rise of lawlessness. And the Bible says in Matthew 24 that the rise of lawlessness will have the love of many will grow cold, right? So this is what we're talking about back several decades ago when you're talking about these whole things of kids going to school with their guns and stuff. Morality-wise, we were a lot better and higher in our morals, whether
Absolutely.
you were a Christian or non-Christian.
Absolutely.
Because of the standard. And so, again, we're going back to the same type of root issues of taking God out of school, taking prayer out of school, taking the Bible out of school, and therefore the Antichrist system, beast system, is discipling a generation or generations. So what's the end goal of the Antichrist? So this the devil: steal, kill, destroy.
Yep. Yep.
So this is the reason why.
It's like, you take any issue and it really is the issue that, God is taken out. God is taken out of the system. God is taken out of the classroom. God is, he's just not present. He is not invited into the classroom. Actually, he is kicked out of the classroom. And so therefore we see these terrible things happening. Like, so even with this, the mother of this, the kid that shot up, this last school situation, she basically asked that people could forgive her and the son that shot all those people. And her reasoning was, well, he had his reasons. Where is absolute truth in that? Right. It's not there. Right. He had his reasons for killing all those kids and teachers. Yep. What kind of reason? Okay, sure, he may have been going through a hard time, but wrong is wrong and right is right. And if we take that out of our society, we've taken it out of schools, but now we're taking it out of society. And somehow, because she said he had his reasons, that's supposed to make it okay? No.
It's consequences. And that's the thing. Removal of consequences is basically moving away from absolutes.
It's consequences, but also understanding that there is a standard. There, somebody gets to decide what is right and what is wrong. And that somebody is the creator. That somebody is God.
Again, I think going back. So give me a second, guys, just so let me interject. We're coming in and out here with the video, so we apologize again. There's some technical difficulty with the video. The audio should still be there. So if we go back in with the black again, just know that we're still talking and the audio is going through. Apologize for that again. But it's about the law. Right. And again, this is why law is needed, law outside of man to help man govern themselves.
That's right.
And the lawgiver is God. And so this is the reason why there's so much confusion. There's so much lawlessness and chaos. And, the earth was without form and void, and God spoke it into existence, and he created what was chaotic into order.
Right.
Because the word of God was spoken.
Right.
And this is why we have to love the law of the Lord. We have to love the law of the Lord. And this is the problem. Right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's the beautiful thing, because when there is the lawgiver and he is greater than you, and he is outside of you, and the fact that it is something, it's not my opinion, it's not your opinion, it's not anybody's opinion. It's a set thing. It's a set thing that we can, we know that is truth, and we can count on that. And that makes all the difference. So I would also say, another point that I want to bring is, are these the only people that are dying from gunshots?
Right.
Right? That's actually a really big issue. You would think that every time the legislature starts talking about gun control, because that's really what we see. Every time there is a situation at the schools, their answer is, let's take the guns away. Let's make it more difficult for people to buy guns. Let's control it more. Let's do this. My solution would be, let's bring God back into the school system. Can we bring the Bible back into the school system? Can we bring prayer back into, because I can guarantee you that over time, this will diminish. Don't have to take one gun out of the system, but if the hearts change, the young adults, the kids will change as well.
Again, this is a political move. It's not a moral move. And the issue we're talking about is the heart is wicked, evil. Jeremiah says it, right? So taking the symptom of a gun away is not going to change the problem of the heart. A lot of these inner city shootings that we're seeing, whether Chicago or what you want to talk about, they're coming with people who have illegally gotten a gun. So that's not going to change. That's still going to happen because sin is sin. It prevails no matter what laws are in place. And that's why I think, because there's bigger issues with that. They want to remove the Second Amendment because of the whole globalist push to remove sovereignty away from us as a nation.
Well, and we as a nation are still a threat. If we have guns in our possession, we are still a threat because somehow we are able to protect ourselves. Right. As soon as you take away the guns, you are now so much more at the mercy of the government. And, it just it shifts the game dramatically. So
I think what the NRA says, there's about over 80 million people who have guns or are associated with the NRA, National Rifle Association. So I think that's a big constituency in the population.
Well, you figure, maybe those are the ones connected to the NRA, but if you have 434 million, and I get it, a lot of people have more than one gun, but it seems like, it could be a much bigger number as far as how many people have the guns. Mm-hmm. So I just want to get you some quotes and numbers from Chicago. So in 2021, and I'm getting this from the Chicago Sun-Times, there have been nearly 820 homicides in Chicago this year, and 4,390 people were shot in Chicago in 2021. So those are huge numbers. If you look at all of the people that died in the school shootings, compared to those numbers, you can't even compare. And again, schools should be a safe place. So it should never, it's never okay that there's, a shooting in a school. But I would say we should protect the schools better. Mm-hmm. There should be things that set up to protect. And, and this last one is just a mess all in itself. But this is what the department said. With guns fueling much of the violence in Chicago, Brown said his department, this is the police department, took 12,034 guns off the street this past year and made 5,596 gun arrests. Okay, huge numbers of guns. The number of assault weapons seized doubled from the previous year, with 701 recovered, according to Brown. More ghost guns or homemade guns without serial numbers were also recovered. That was 455, a 71% jump from the 130 recovered in 2020. So all I'm going to say is, for the people that want to do evil, they can do evil without permission from the government. Right. A huge number of just guns, homemade guns that were made. And just this past weekend, 46 people were shot in Chicago. 10 of them were killed. We're talking about huge numbers. Now, meanwhile, my question would be, how come the government on the federal level is not talking about the children have died in these numbers? There's children there too, right? That were just minding their own business. But somehow the government is not interested in these numbers, in these guns, in this situation, but they are continually interested in going after law-abiding citizens. Mm-hmm. And so my question is, why is that? Why is the government not interested in doing something about these terrible numbers? You look at New York City and the crime rate that has gone up over there. You look at Seattle, and basically in Seattle, like, they are so overwhelmed with crime that rape is not even investigated. Right. Can you imagine? Okay, so it's like the whole thing of the defunding the police. It's all strategy to create chaos so that there's a crisis. So there's a crisis. Another thing is, okay, because now let's just keep focusing on guns. Our southern border is not closed up. Meanwhile, how come they're not doing anything to stop the gun import from the cartels from Mexico, right? Like the cartels are coming in. People on the southern border are afraid for their lives because the cartel is now in our country, and they are living very, very comfortably in those southern towns, and nobody is concerned about the guns. Nobody is concerned about what happens at that border because we're just keeping it open. And yet, so just like even with the vaccine, the people coming from illegally don't have to be vaccinated, but the citizens in our country have to be vaccinated to the point of losing your job.
Right.
In the same way, they're wanting to limit and control us in our gun right, versus what happens at the southern border. Who needs to know? Why is that even interesting to any of us, right? And so, we need to be thinking about these things in a more holistic way. We can't just take propaganda that's coming through media platforms and saying, oh yeah, right, look, another shooting, as terrible as that is. I can't imagine the parents. I can't imagine the pain that has happened. But to say, oh, it's guns. And if we only get rid of the guns, that things will be okay and things will go back to normal and all will be well. That's just unrealistic. That's just not true, and it's not right. Ohio.
And again, I think the challenge here is that these are still human beings who are dying. These are still people who are basically losing life, and so it's horrific. It's horrific to see that. Now, if you just look at it through a certain narrative, you're going to look at its injustice, right? There's unfairness. Why is this happening? But it's all about the way you perceive it. And if you're not understanding it and interpreting it from a bigger picture, you're going to get caught up in that moment of that individual or so forth that lost a life or had something done bad to them, not realizing there are things behind that it's all basically trying to create this narrative.
Mm-hmm. So I would say more than anything, I think the need for a gun has been really highlighted between COVID lockdowns and then even this last Texas shooting, how the police wouldn't go in. It was actually a border patrol sergeant that wasn't even on duty at the time that came in and just shot the guy that was killing these kids. I mean, it's terrible. Over an hour it took for someone to do something, whereas a child was being shot regularly. And so it's very interesting. Ohio legislature has passed a law to allow teachers to have a gun in the classroom. That's huge. That's huge. Yep. That's definitely huge. So, definitely government wants to take guns away for our own safety, for sure.
Sure.
But now I just want to explore some of the issues. So what would happen if we would get rid of the guns? Like, would violence stop? Mm-hmm. Right? And so I just have a couple stats for you. So in 2014, there was an article in SmithsonianMag.com. And basically they're saying on Saturday, more than 130 people in a train station in Kunming, China, were injured when about 10 men and women wielding knives began stabbing others at random, the BBC reports. The attackers, who authorities say might be members of a Muslim separatist group from a certain province, used swords and meat cleavers to inflict damage on people lined up near the busy station's ticket counter. Officials stated that at least 28 people have been confirmed dead as a result of the attacks. As shocking as Saturday's attack is, knife attacks are not uncommon in China. Knives are often the weapon of choice here. It's unclear exactly how many knife attacks have taken place in China over the year, but the almost regular media reports of the attacks suggest that efforts to regulate the purchase of knives, like where do we stop? Now they're trying to regulate the purchase of knives or punish offenders, haven't been successful. Right? So you take away a gun, then you'll go to a knife. You take away a knife, you'll go to a meat cleaver. You'll take, but I think I'm just going to, so that's China, okay? But London stabbings in 2021 is like, it's just normal at the time this was written in June 2021. It says stabbings in London are still rife with knife crime, continuing to plague the capital. There's been already dozens of blade attacks in the city this year, with dozens of people killed. They say 10 people on average are caught with blades every day on the streets of London. So does that take away the evil in someone's heart? You know?
And again, I think the challenge is that we should have a right to defend ourselves. And the more and more immorality rises, the more human nature is, what am I going to do to protect myself? I think that's the challenge. The challenge is it's not going to stop the human heart from whether you're doing, again, it's just a weapon. It's just like money. Money is a tool. The weapon is just tools.
Right.
With a perspective of a right way of handling the gun, it's for your protection and safety. With an evil, with a more decayed, you're going to have that as a weapon for anger and rage to spell out. So
right. So it's like, okay, for then 99.99% of the people that are walking legally, trying to do everything legally, and it's for their, home protection, for hunting, for just target practice, whatever it may be. It's so much easier to take rights away from someone who is doing things legally than to actually try to make a difference in the actual bad things that are happening.
Right.
And that's kind of what we're seeing throughout, but it really goes back to the heart.
Correct. Just
kind of what you were saying. It's like, and maybe we can also talk about, because let me finish with this, because we could say, okay, knives, are we going to take knives away? How about cars, right? Are we going to take cars away? So just June 8th, just yesterday or the day before, in Berlin, 14 school children were injured and a teacher was killed after a car hit a crowded group of people, right? Remember, we had in Wisconsin just this past November, that Christmas parade, we had that going on. In March 20th of a couple months ago in Brussels, Belgium, a car slammed into a whole group of people. 6 were dead and 10 had life-threatening injuries. So now, are we going to get rid of cars? The bottom line is the heart is wicked and we need Jesus. Mm-hmm. And we, as a nation, we need to go back to that. Well, obviously we're praying that the Lord just sends a revival so that the hearts may change and turns toward the Lord. But to make good decisions for our schools, like right now, it's going in the wrong direction. And that's why we need to stand up and make a difference in our local areas. But we need God back in all these different platforms. And that's really the only answer. It's not taking guns away. It's bringing God back into all of these.
Well, again, you can legislate up the wazoo. Unless there's a heart change, people are going to break the law. Biblically speaking, Paul talks about it. What I want to do, I can't do because of the sin living in me. That's without Christ. Christ comes into your life. There's transformation that happens. Regeneration happens. You are now bent towards righteousness. You actually want to do the right thing. So that's the challenge. It's like you're going to try to legislate something that you can't fix through a law.
Right.
And this is why, you want righteousness to begin in the heart first, which then outlays behavior with righteous laws. And that's the fight between good and evil right now.
Right. But our laws should also indicate that we have value for life. And if our laws don't indicate that there's value in life, then what do we expect?
Right. And that's what I'm saying. A sheep nation ultimately gets their laws derived from the lawgiver himself, the Bible, and the law of God.
Right.
And that's what's happening. Why our nation has been so blessed for over these 240 some years is because the founders recognized the law of God to supersede any earthly law and tried to frame the laws in a manner that's in line and in concert with the law of God.
Right.
Now we're ripping it away.
Right. No, absolutely. So that is definitely a struggle. That is definitely a struggle. So I do want to just throw out a couple topics that we really can't develop very much, but maybe just talk about for a couple minutes. But, in all sorts of media, they're talking about a financial hurricane is coming. And the food, USDA said, this is regarding food, take all the inflation from the last 2 years and double it. And that's what we're facing as far as food prices in September and October. That's pretty daunting, right? And that's what we've been talking about. Like, how can you become more self-sufficient? Can you grow things in your yard? Can you buy some things now that are non-perishable, that you can have a little bit off to the side that you can, like, you know, kind of go into when the going gets tough, type of thing?
Yeah, again, we've been talking about this for months, I think over a year, I would say strongly. It's not just us, it's in the conservative Christian community that sees this stuff. So the Lord is giving us a window here, guys, for us to prepare, because if it's going to hit, like, now experts who are not even prophetic or Christian,
and experts on the left. Right. Now it's experts on the left. Yeah.
When it hits, it's too late in that regard. So that's why it's like Noah building an ark. Why we need to build an ark? Think about it. Noah built it for how many years? So it's hard because you don't see it with your natural, but yet it's something you have to do in faith.
Absolutely. And that's what I would say, whether it's dried foods, canned goods, again, some sort of something that is actually keeping you sustained. Like, what can you do on your property that can self-sustain you, at least in some way, that maybe you can trade with a neighbor, or you could do something, you know, get for, you know, there's all sorts of things that you can do, like a garden, like chickens, like, you know, maybe power sources, different things like that. And, you know, to buy and to be a little more prepared, because you see the prices are going up, and even the media sources that have not acknowledged that inflation was happening, even now at this point, they are saying a hurricane is coming for the fall in terms of prices. So we would just encourage you to get prepared if you haven't, and to
get if you have some extra money, buy a freezer. Freeze some food. Like, again, there's just different practical ways to go about it.
Yeah. So 2 more things. So another thing is that there's an administration rule change that will tie billions of dollars of federal education funding to an array of LGBTQ policies, forcing school districts and universities to implement controversial rules on issues like trans athletes and other things, or get $0 of that pot of money. So we are, you know, again, we're talking about that type of society that's going to be teaching, especially in the school systems, all the wrong things. And this is all coming from the federal government. But now even schools and communities that would be like, you know what, we don't want this. But if they do want federal funding, then they're going to be forced to do it. And so I would be praying for our Christian schools, our Christian colleges, all of those sectors that, or even more conservative communities. How can they stand up to this? What can they do? And how can they get prepared? Because it's coming, whether we like it or not, you know? And then the last thing that I just want to bring up is, this is pretty interesting. So South Australia's parliament becomes the latest to declare a climate emergency. Okay. So it's part of Australia. It's not the whole nation. This is Southern Australia. But they're basically, they passed a motion saying that it's urgent to decarbonize the state's economy. Okay. Like that they're, and now it's them plus 28 other nations, including France, including Germany, I think. Including Britain, France, Portugal, and Argentina. But there's 28 countries that have already declared a state of emergency for climate change. Now, it sounds like through the works, it sounds like that is coming up the pike in our country as well. Whether it's going to be in the fall or whatever. But the challenge with that if it was our government just saying, you know what, we're really concerned about it, well, we know that because they are doing everything they can to keep fossil fuel and that whole agenda, in their, that's why our gas prices are what they are. That's why diesel prices are the way they are. That's why our pipelines are being shut down. That's why leases on pipelines are not being extended or given. All these different things, we understand that is what's happening. But if our country, if our government declares a state of emergency in that way, we will not. So they, as in the government, as in Biden, will be given a lot more authority. We thought he had a lot of authority now. He will be given a lot. There are things allotted to the government according to the Constitution when an emergency, when a state of emergency is passed in a country, as we've seen, right, with COVID and things like that. But now they're talking about climate, right? Which, that being the case, then we may have an emergency state forever.
Well, and that's the whole. I think, didn't Hitler do the same thing?
Yes, he did.
So it's the same type of methodology, strategy, I would say would be the
Hitler
word.
did that for 12 years. 12 years that he was in power, he enacted emergency
Because when there's
state.
emergency, this is the whole, again, tracing back to the whole Marxist ideology, create a crisis, so then it usurps, it takes emergency powers into every sovereign nation's constitution, which gives then the right of that leader then to have some type of utilitarian control,
Yep.
which they can be able to do what they want to do. So this is the strategy, guys. You got to understand and put the pieces together. So create another thing, another issue, climate control. We're under emergency. Remember the whole thing with the lockdowns with COVID? The governors felt empowered, so they would continually, jurisdict and extend. In New Jersey, that's what they would do, right? Every 30 days or something, that restriction lifted, they would redo it again. And that's the sign of tyranny, and that's the sign of really, this is how the Antichrist and the rulers are looking to bring about one world.
Yeah.
And with anything latest on the WHO situation with?
Okay, so an update on the WHO situation. I think we talked about it here, whether we did just in church or okay. So basically, there is good news. There was not consensus. They were not able to get a consensus. And basically said that it's going to be pushed. A sort of committee was formed that they will gather in November to discuss further issues, dealing with those amendments. The one amendment that was passed out of the 13 was that instead of having 18 months to pull out of things, it went down to 6 months.
Right.
So not good news because, that's a much shorter window to do anything, but at least it didn't happen now.
Right.
So we have pretty much till November. I know there's people that are really watching what's happening in those areas. So they will definitely sound an alarm if something is happening that we don't know about. But for now, thank God, it got pushed till November.
So guys, this is what it's all about. It's about being holistic in your approach to the gospel of the kingdom. We all are about revival, a move of the Holy Spirit, signs and wonders, fivefold ministry, the prophetic, the anointing to touch the people's hearts, true, authentic encounters with Jesus. And yet that's still not enough because you can spiritually awaken yourself, and yet we still got a culture that needs to be engaged in. We need to be aware of it, educated, and then find your way of influencing to take a stand, to be able to get yourself involved. And so that's kind of what we're trying to do here with getting involved in culture.
And I would say definitely, with the amendments in the WHO that you were talking about, the fact that people heard about it and started calling and started bombarding the offices, it made a difference. They really thought everything was going to go under the radar and that people weren't going to know about it until it actually happened, right? And yet that's, the Lord, it was really miraculous how it even came out and that people found out about it, because it was really done in such a sly way with, no fanfare, just kind of trying to get it under the radar. And somebody did happened to stumble upon it and, brought alarm to it. And so by people getting involved, by people, calling,
Yep.
emailing, whatever, like they're texting their senators, the administration up in Washington, D.C., like it really made a difference. They realized they wouldn't just be able to do it without going under
Right.
their radar. But I'll tell you what, it actually, like over there, a lot of the African countries, because there's one representative from each country, one vote, maybe 3 representatives, but 1 vote. And a lot of the African countries were not going along with this. And would you say that's because they already know what tyranny looks like?
Yeah.
Because they already know, and isn't it interesting? The whole idea is equity. And yet the African countries are the ones that are like, no, we don't want somebody to be telling us what to do. We rather, govern ourselves.
All right, guys. Well, listen, a lot on the broadcast. Again, our apologies for the blackening out on the video side of it. We're working on that. Forgive us for that. But tune in every Thursday, Facebook Live at 4 o'clock. We like to speak prophetically, both in the world of the realm of the spiritual things as well as the natural, looking to bring information and inspiration and impartation to what's going on. So, Lord willing, we'll talk to you guys next week. 4 o'clock. If not, you can check this out on our Facebook and our website, impactchurch.co. And so, other than that, Lord willing, we will hopefully see you this weekend as we're continuing our series on Revelation, and a lot happening. So, any final thoughts?
A lot of praying to do.
Yep. Good. All right. Bless you guys. We'll see you guys next week. Thank you for joining the broadcast. God bless you. Have a great day.